We're going to spend a short time in the rehearsal hall on a hymn song of Philip Bliss. I've chosen this piece for one stylistic reason, and that is the piece has a lot of moving lines in it. Because I want you to understand that all these musical concepts, these attributes of expression I've been talking about, do not simply apply to melodic lines only. They apply to every line that runs through a piece. My wife has a wind conducting degree from the University of North Texas, and one day she was relating to me Gene Corporon's adage about the musical line in a composition that serves as an engine that runs the piece. You know, and it's true. In every piece there are melodic lines, there are lines that are generated by their harmonic activity, and there are lines that churn and turn and give motion and tension and direction. They are the motor that runs the piece, the engine that runs the piece. However, much of the time in the band world, we tend to let the melody line rule supreme and allow all those other parts to be secondary, third, fourth. I mean, we relegate them into nothingness, in fact, and sometimes. My perception is that all lines are important, at varying degrees, of course, but still. If I didn't want all those busy lines, I'd just write music with whole notes. I intend that the rhythmic motion come through in every piece, that it have a purpose to the musical life of the composition. We're going to go in the rehearsal hall. We're going to start playing Philip Bliss as it appears on the page, the score page. We'll play the dynamics. We're going to play the articulations with the proper attention as we should. However, what we're going to do is we're going to always keep the melody as the dominant factor, and we're going to make all the other lines secondary in nature. Unfortunately, this is normally how I hear this piece performed. As we return to the beginning of the piece to play it a second time, the main change in our musical thinking will be this, that every line we play is an important line, that any line we play may be a dominant line and a part of the fabric at any given time. We will not bury lines. We will make every line speak its mind, so to speak. I'm going to ask the the musicians to do this. The same concepts we have talked about in this video. When all notes do not weigh the same, smaller notes lead to larger notes. Anytime we have that situation, I'm going to ask the musicians to simply move by use of a crescendo through those places. I'm going to ask at measure 9, where the horn comes in with the melody for the first time, I'm going to ask the saxophones and clarinets not to back off, but to bring that line out, to be kind of definite with their playing there, not to hide away, but to give it direction. Even small fragments. There's a small fragment in the clarinet part here that's about measure 12 and 13. There are 2 eighth notes to a dotted half note. I'm going to ask them to crescendo through those 2 eighth notes. Dee-da-da, dee-da-da, which basically going to crescendo to a strong note on a weak beat. But again, what I'll do, I'll add tension to that moment. As we move through the piece, I'm going to ask the musicians to start looking at this other concept, that music moves forward point to point, and they look over the long range and see where the piece actually changes its character. A few measures in front of letter 42, there are 5 half-note chords, right before the place where the brass begin the up-tempo section. I'm going to ask that those 5 half notes be played, well, with tension, with edge, with determination. I want them to be really almost pickups to 42. I want them to think it's a foreshadowing of the new character of the music. That's a change of interpretation, but again, musical expression is what we're talking about here. And also thinking in the larger form, I want the musicians to realize as they go from point to point, I mean from the beginning on through the piece, that there's a certain point where interpretation-wise, we have to realize that the apex of the piece kind of occurs. I think in measure 56, there's a big tutti chord. And I'm going to ask the musicians if they will consider that really the last chord of the piece, the last note. And I want them to musically think expressively to move to that point, almost in finality. And yet at that point, there's a character change immediately afterwards where the clarinets go back to the "It Is Well," and if you'll notice too, I've asked those musicians, I will ask these musicians on that particular phrase, not to simply keep those core notes da da da, but to move them forward because they are again small notes leading to a larger note. But we have a quiet coda at the end. It's almost an afterglow, like a fire that just burns away and closes. Character changes inside of music. That's also a part of music expression, and something that needs to be addressed also. But now we're going to go back from the beginning, again through the piece. It will be a different piece. It will have red in it. Three concepts of musical expression. All notes do not weigh the same. Music moves forward point to point, and contour of the line dictates its dynamics. These are just a few of the ideas to teach musical expression. And you as conductors and musicians, you also have a heritage of ideas that you can share with your students. We hold in our hands the heritage of the next generation. And our job as conductors is to pass it on. On behalf of Lee University and BandDirector.com, I'm David Holsinger, and I bid you good day.